I think we're live. Let's share screen so we don't have to do that in the middle of the video. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Let me share screens this way. Bam. Good morning, good morning. Chat disconnected. All right, there might be no chat today. That's okay. All right, good morning and welcome to the Board Gaming Breakfast. This is a morning stream presented by the McMeeples. My name is Sam. I am one half of the McMeeples Instagram account. We like to go live every Monday through Friday to just share some of our thoughts on board gaming and board gaming like things. All right, so for those of you new to the channel, I like to go live, bring a game to the table. We'll talk about it for a few minutes, talk about the mechanics that I like, don't, or mostly it's like right now. So it's reasons why I enjoy playing the game. Then we'll go into a segment where we spin the wheel of mechanics and add a random mechanic into the game that we talked about today. And we'll finish off by designing a game in 5 minutes or less. So with that out of the do, let's set up for video number 1. Make sure the mic is... We can have a little sneaky mic. All right. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about the game Mythic Mischief by Ivy Studio. Mythic Mischief is a 1 to 4 player game. Preferably, I like to play it at 2 players best. It's sort of a head-to-head game. Today I won't be giving a full rules overview. I'll just be highlighting the mechanics that I enjoy in this game. And I'd love to hear what you enjoy about the game as well. So Mythic Mischief, the theme of it is that you're taking on the role of a different type of monster, or so you take on a different fantasy role. So we got, in the base set, we got the wizards, vampires, and zombies. And this comes with a team of 3 characters. So we'll pull out, we got the vampires for demo. And so first off, the miniatures are fantastic in this game. See if I can use the box top to highlight some of that. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll keep it normal setup. But everyone gets 3 different miniatures that you'll send into the library. And the library board here is a 5x5 grid. And the goal of the game is to be the first to get to 10 victory points, or to be the furthest along the track after a certain number of rounds. And so what I find cool about this game is that each monster has a slightly asymmetrical player board that you're taking control of, or character group. And so they're all set up to do 4 different actions. So everyone will have the move action, and then everyone will have a distract action. Those will always be the same from game to game. But the way that they manipulate other characters on the board and the way that they manipulate walls in the game differ slightly, but depending on the character. And for the most part, they tie into the theme of the character that you're playing as. So if we pull up this board again, it'll be seated with these different walls, making it so you can't move directly from one square to another. And then you'll set up a few other things, but there'll be this librarian that starts in, I think, the center of the board, and at the end of each player's turn will move based on the rule card that's out for the before lunch round. And so this shows you how to seed, but all you care about for movement is this top number here. So for this example, the librarian would move 4 spaces after each player's turn. And what the librarian's trying to do is go from 1 to 2 to 3, those spaces on the board, in the path of least resistance. And so, or the most direct path. So you can manipulate the shelving and some of the junk that, I think they call it junk, but there's these tokens that are clutter. So there's the clutter tokens that cost an additional movement to move into. And so you have this agency of choosing how the board state looks to kind of indirectly path where the librarian's going to go. And my favorite part about that is it requires you to kind of plan, because not only everyone has the information of the path that the librarian's trying to do. For this example, the librarian's trying to go up to this top space, and then after they've satisfied that, they'll come down to the 2 and then the 3, which once that happens, it'll trigger the lunch break for the librarian. And then after lunch, if I have one of those cards, you'll flip a different card, which will change the movement and where the numbers go on the board. And it'll also give you a small bonus ability that you have an asymmetrical power for after lunch. And so that is kind of the general rules overview. And my favorite mechanic is that your board, we'll use the blue vampire board because we have those materials out. Each dot on the board shows where dice start out. And so if we can seed this board without dropping any of the dice, that would be super duper. But we have, all right, moment of truth. Good thing this is double-sided. So you'll seed the board, and based on the number of where the die is, you can see on the top of each space is what you'll set the die face to, and you get to spend those points to take those actions. And throughout the course of the game, there'll be these book tokens that are seeded out throughout the board based on where the cubes show on the setup card. And if you manage to collect those, you get to place the books in to the rows, which will push the dice out further. So it'll give you more actions. So you can power up specific actions. And so having that control over how much you want to power up your movement or your distract or your ways that you manipulate the shelves or the other player, you have that control of, you know, building up this engine and feeling very satisfying throughout the game, of feeling like you're controlling the strength of your team. And the one thing that I find is pretty cool is, you know, you'd think, oh, well, you collect all the books. Why wouldn't you do that? Because you're stronger. Every character has a one-time ability here that while it's charged up with a book, you can spend to do a powerful bonus. And that decision of, oh, do I want to spend it now to have a really cool tactical turn, to have the librarian capture 3 of my opponent's figures to get 3 points, or do I want to, you know, permanently boost my move action so that I can just move around more to get out of sticky situations, isn't the most obvious decision of which one you should do. And so the fact that you can either use them to fill that space and spend them to get slowly, like, one-time really powerful rewards, or to just build into your engine, is a really cool mechanic that Mythic Mischief has been able to add into this tactical game. And so that is probably my favorite, outside of the production value is beautiful in this game. Outside of that, my favorite mechanic in the game is that constant decision of where to put your books for leveling up certain powers or using it for your one-time bonus. I'd love to hear in the comments below what your favorite part or what your favorite character in Mythic Mischief is. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe. I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I hope to hear from you soon. Alright, video 1 out of the way. Ugh. I don't think chat's working today, but that's okay. I'm gonna quickly pick up a little bit, and we'll get into video number 2. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, video 2 is we will take the game that we just talked about, Mythic Mischief, and go to our wheel of mechanics and add a random mechanic into it. And once I get a little more space to move around, we will do just that. I think I got mostly everything, so we'll do a double check after the stream. It's all there. Alright, setting up. We got the librarian. So, ooh. All right. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and today we are going to add a random game mechanic into the game Mythic Mischief. I did a quick overview of what my favorite parts of Mythic Mischief are in a previous video, and so in this one I'm going to use our Wheel of Mechanics to add a random mechanic into the game. And so how this will work is I will switch over in OBS to our different screen setup, and we have in the top right corner a wheel filled with a bunch of game mechanics. And I will jump into that screen and spin the wheel. And so what will happen from here is whatever it lands on, we gotta add into today's game, Mythic Mischief. Flow. What is flow? I think this happened last time. Let me pull it up in BGG. Might have to delete this from the wheel because I'm never familiar with what that is. Let's see, I'll speedrun it, see how quickly I can figure out what flow is as a board game mechanic. Oh god, we're not PRing here. So browse, mechanics. So right now I'm in bgg.com, and we have follow. We can't find, where's flow? It's not showing up on BGG, so I don't know where I got this mechanic from. What happens if we just ask Google flow mechanic in board games? See what pops up. Flow is how to meet the situation in games, which choices are better or worse. Alright, I guess they're kind of tactical flow. There's already kind of that. So we'll spin the wheel again. Sorry for the slowdown. So we'll try it one more time. So we'll spin the wheel. Hopefully it lands on a mechanic that isn't in Mythic Mischief. Constrained bidding. Alright. So now that we have constrained bidding as our mechanic, constrained bidding, we're going to add that into Mythic Mischief. Ooh, that is terrible handwriting. M-I-S-C-H-I before E-F. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pull up our timer on our phone and set it for 5 minutes and see where we get to with adding constrained bidding into Mythic Mischief. So the first thoughts that I have are in the game with the sort of before and after lunch cards. There's two thoughts that I have for bidding. And so potentially we would have to add the idea of lunch money. And everyone starts with, we'll pick an arbitrary number, say 10 coins as your lunch money. And so the idea is that there is a before lunch and after lunch card in the game. And so for those of you who haven't watched the other video or played Mythic Mischief before, this will give you the setup for before lunch. And when you have the librarian that gets to spot 3 on this card, you'll go into the after lunch. And I set the stage for that to explain that everyone starts the game with 10 coins, and you can bid on which character you want, or which locations you want to start your character in at the beginning of the game. So if you look at those 6 circles, we'll redraw it here for hopefully a little easier viewing. So there's the 6 circles for starting, and you can bid. Doesn't really matter where I put them for this example. There'll be an auction of bidding where you start each character at. And so that would be one way of adding constrained bidding. And so all of your leftover lunch money can be spent at lunch to spend every 3, maybe? So we'll start with 12, but for every 3 that you have left over, you can permanently add in a book to your player board or something like that. Would be the first way that I'd try to add in a constrained bidding element to Mythic Mischief. The second idea I'd thought of is that you use the same principle, but instead of bidding on where you're starting for the locations, you would randomly assign coin values to each of these characters, and those would be the starting bids, and you bid. You would do a tournament style where you'd end up drafting 3 of them, but the way you draft the 3 characters would be by bidding the lunch money on them. And at the end of each round, you could spend your lunch money to boost a die value for the round. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what the boost mechanic is, I can switch over to full camera really quick. So see the dots in each of the squares? That's where your dice will start, and there's a number above each square of like how many action points are assigned for that action. So the top action of the move action has 2 starting dice in it, 1 in the 2 spot and 1 in the 1 spot. So you would get 3 movement actions each round based on that setup. But at the end of each round, you're allowed to boost 2 dice. So the leftover lunch money, you'd be able to pay 1 coin to boost an additional die at the end of a round. And so that would be the reason to hold on to your coins and not just bid everything. But that would be... All right, so that we are about 4 minutes in. So I'll switch back over to our second screen and recap where we had gotten to. So from spinning the wheel of mechanics, we ended up at constrained bidding is what we had to add into Mythic Mischief. And we came up with the idea of everyone starts with 10 lunch money, or 12, depending on how it tests. And at the beginning of the game, that you could, our first idea was bidding on your starting locations to spend coins or bid to, you know, this would go up for auction first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And you'd go spot by spot doing a bidding until one person passed, the other person would pay the coins, and then leftover coins could be spent at the switch over from the before lunch card to the after lunch card to permanently upgrade a spot for every 3 coins you spend. So that would be why you'd leave it over, but that's how option A of what we came up with for constrained bidding. The other option that we ended up with, or idea we came up with, is the same lunch money, starting with 10, and instead of bidding on the spots that you start in, you bid on the characters that you want to draft, and you would do a best of 3 style game where each person, because we have the expansions, we have 7 different characters that you can use. You would bid on which characters you want to draft, and that would be the fixed bidding element of the game. And again, the leftover lunch money that you have in this scenario, instead of spending 3 to permanently upgrade an action slot, you could spend 1 coin at the end of any number. Well, you can spend coins at the end of your turn to boost an additional die for every coin you spend, would be our second idea that we came up with. So how I would test either one of these ideas is I would have to decide which one I'd want to start with. And so for me, my gut's saying that I think we wouldn't want to play a tournament style, so I'd start with the first one of just bidding on the starting locations. And then I liked the idea of spending the leftover coins for boosting. So I would write down the 2 rules that we'd be adding to the game. The first being how the bidding works for the positions at the beginning, and the second being the option to spend a coin at the end of each turn to boost the die. And then next time we pulled Mythic Mischief out, I'd asked my fiance Michaela, hey, I have a house rule that I wanted to test. Would you be willing to try it with me? And if she agreed to it, that's how we would test it out. So with that, we have satisfied the challenge of adding constrained bidding into Mythic Mischief. If you have any of your own ideas of a different way that you could add constrained bidding into the game, feel free to comment those in the comment section below. If you like videos like this, feel free to subscribe. Have a good one. All right, let me double check. That's wild. So for context, I just got a random text, and I am a fan of disc golf, and so I like to do it in my free time. Last summer, I lost the first ever disc golf disc that I bought, and someone just found it. What do you know? So I will address that afterwards. All right. So we got to do video number 3, but that's a happy accident. All right, video number 3, for those that are new, I will be opening a new sheet on my tablet, and we will be generating a game prompt for us to design around. Gonna grab a quick drink of water, and then we will get on with it. Yum, 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 yum. All right. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we are going to design a game concept in 5 minutes or less. If you're new to the channel, we like to pull up our helpful tool of the game generating tool, or game idea generator, and this can be found at letsmakeagame.net. And what it will provide for us is a genre, rule, setting, and theme for us to design around. And so what will happen is after we click the generate button, we will set ourselves a 5-minute timer to see what we come up with. And so without further ado, let's get to it. So we got the genre's VR, the rule is magic gone wrong, the setting is modern day, and the theme is lost love. Interesting. All right, so let's set the timer and see what we got. So the timer is running. We'll put our phone off to the side. Magic gone wrong. And lost love. So I like the idea of this being a cooperative couples game where you're trying to make a love potion. And so the initial thought that I have is that I don't know if this will work, but there is basically 2 people in a lover's quarrel, and they start on the end of each end of this game board. And my thought is that there'd be potentially a few different regions that you want to try and get these 2 to meet in. And so the idea is that there are a bunch of different spaces for these. I'm gonna thicken the pen stroke really quick, medium, because I like solid lines. But you have these 2 pawns that you're trying to get to meet, and it's a semi-cooperative in the sense that each person has a goal that they want the 2 pawns to meet in. So my goal could be, we want them to meet within the yellow region. And my partner's goal could be that they need to meet in the seventh space. So there's colored regions, and then there's numbers assigned to each space, and that is their ideal situation. But they will compromise if you can achieve it to be less than 10 or something like that. And this will compromise as long as it's not blue. And the idea is that you'll have this deck of cards that you're playing out at the same time. So each person would draw 5 cards, and you'll both be playing them face down on each end. And it will be a potion that you're going to do simultaneously. And so the potential is I had an idea and kind of lost it. But I think there'd be sort of an action that you get to do. And then on the other side of the card that you play, an action the opponent gets to do. Or I guess your partner. And so the cards that get combined would be the love potions that you're doing. And it would like be actions like, you know, set the tokens so that they're 6 spaces away or something like that. And so they would end up here, and then you get to move 1 token to the left 3 spaces or something like that. And so there'd be all these different movement actions that you'd be playing, or like shifting the regions for compromise. I'm kind of getting like the vibe of not quite, so almost like either a Fox in the Forest duet style game if you've played that, or a pulling from the ideas of, I've never played Fog of Love, but in the King's Dilemma, you're like each person has a private objective of what they want these tokens to end up at, and so it's adding to that. Instead of just having one specific token that you want within a region, you're trying to link up these 2 pawns to, you know, end up being as loved ones. And so it will be, I think the card, that would be interesting. The cards would be like, love can be found if both people, I'll stop that. So I'll finish this thought, and then we'll wrap up to where we've ended up and how we would go about getting this idea flushed out and finished. So the first is that each player would be dealt a random card, and this has a, like, you both can win if the top is achieved for both people, but you can win if you can achieve the bottom. And so it will be like 2 pawns that you're trying to, like, the game will end when the 2 pawns are met in the middle, or when each player runs out of cards. And I think there would be, you know, 12 cards in the game, and so you'd shuffle and deal out 6 to each player. And there would be maybe 15, I don't know. There'd be a bunch of different goal cards, and the 12 cards that you'd be playing as actions for the round, you'll play over the course of 6 rounds, and each person at the same time will be playing a card face down to the center. And then there's no specific turn order that you have to resolve, but once both players have played them down, you'll flip them, and then you'll start like kind of the open table talk of who wants to go first, who wants to do that. And you'll have to make decisions of how to shift these different regions and moving the pawns in hopes of getting the 2 to meet. And once they meet, the game will end immediately, and you'll reveal your objective cards. And so if you both can achieve the top criteria for you to both win, that's awesome. You've won the game. If they meet and you didn't achieve the top criteria, you'll look at the bottom criteria to see if you can still win that way. And if you both still win that way, your love would be lost, but you both kind of have the moral victory of becoming better people. But the idea is that you realize your differences and find true love and can meet and in the pawns in the middle and both satisfy the top one. Or the third outcome could be one person meets their bottom criteria and the other person doesn't, and that would cause problems. But that's sort of where we got with this game idea. And so to recap, our prompt was VR, which we completely ignored for the setting or genre. So maybe it's a virtual love simulator. The rule is magic gone wrong. So we would make these as, so maybe you both are playing like the role of this virtual godmother trying to get these two lovebirds back together. And so you're concocting magic potions. Those would be the actions of the cards that you'd play. And we kind of followed the Lost Love and modern day theming of it. But it would be a cooperative style game that's played over the course of 6 rounds. On each round, you deal out, or each game you deal out 6 of the love potions to each player. And there might be like a little reference on the potential cards that or what the 12 cards are. So 1, 2, 3, and a round consists of each player playing a card face down and then revealing, and then they get to talk through how to manipulate the pawns. And the game will end at the end of the 6 rounds, or as soon as the 2 pawns occupy the same space. And once either of those happen, the players will reveal their end game conditions to see if they've won or not. And so that is the framing of the game that we would build around. And how we would test this is I would end up coming up with 12 cards and figuring out what the UX of this, of if it would be 2 actions that you get to perform and an opponent gets to perform, or it would be a either or statement on each of the cards. And you have to talk out how you want to use both of the love potions. And if there is a split decision, the player who played the card or didn't play the card gets to be the tie break. And so I'd have to make those 12, and I'd have to come up with what all of the different end game conditions would be. So I'd probably come up with another 12 of those. So it'd be a 24 card deck. And we would then have to make a track to test this on. And this would be a game that I'd probably just make out of scrap material and just like, old recycled printer paper and sleeve it on old playing cards or something like that, because this would be a much more fun game to try and test out in person for like the tabletop discussion of after the cards have been revealed, instead of trying to test it on tabletop simulator or a virtual one. I think the kind of politicking and table talk between the 2 players would be a lot more worthwhile testing in person than on TTS. And so that would be the last few things that I would need to do to get it to a testable state. And then I'd probably go ask my fiance Michaela. I'd bother her being like, hey, do you mind testing this out with me? And she's always been very cooperative with all of my crazy board gaming stuff. So we would bring it to the table and test it from there. So that's sort of where we ended up with today's prompt. I'd love to hear your comments in the below on what you came up with from this prompt. And if you like videos like this, you can expect one once a week where we come up with a game in 5 minutes or less. Or if you want to watch them in real time, I'm live every Monday through Friday from 8 to 8:30-ish, depending on how long the stream takes, for you to watch it there. So I hope you subscribe, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a good one.